These are 20 hidden facts about John Wayne's Chisum that reveal what really happened behind the scenes of the Duke's 200th starring role. From a co-star who had to gain 25 pounds to get hired, to a pocket watch cameo that nobody noticed, to the emotional on-set moment that led to a Grammy nomination, this 1970 Western holds secrets that even die-hard fans have never heard. Fact number 1. This was John Wayne's 200th starring role. October of 1969 brought John Wayne onto the set of Chisum to mark a milestone that few actors in Hollywood history would ever reach, his 200th film as a leading man. 200 films where the Duke carried the picture as the star, a number so staggering that it's hard to wrap your head around even today. His career stretched back to the silent era, and across 4 decades he'd become one of the most recognizable faces in American cinema, which made this moment particularly special, even if audiences sitting in theaters the following year had no clue they were watching such a landmark achievement. The production team understood the significance, Wayne understood it, and they knew they were making history whether anyone else realized it or not. Fact number 2. Wayne learned about his Oscar win while filming. The timing of Chisum in Wayne's career created one of those perfect Hollywood moments that you couldn't write better if you tried. Filming took place in Durango, Mexico, and word arrived on set that the Duke had been nominated for the Academy Award for Best Actor for True Grit, which meant he spent his days making his 200th film while waiting to see if Hollywood would finally give him the recognition many felt he'd deserved for decades. April 7, 1970 arrived during post-production, and Wayne won his only competitive Oscar at age 62. The absolute pinnacle of critical and commercial success hit him right as he was marking this milestone, and you can't help but wonder if that made playing John Chisum feel even more triumphant. Fact number 3. Wayne was 62 and battling serious health issues. 62 years old and fighting challenges that would have stopped most men cold, Wayne arrived on set 6 years removed from the 1964 surgery that took his entire left lung and several ribs due to cancer. Cancer-free didn't mean healthy, and severe breathing difficulties plagued him constantly from decades of smoking 5 to 7 packs of unfiltered Camels daily, a habit that had ravaged his respiratory system beyond repair. Oxygen masks between takes became necessary equipment on the Chisum set, and just 1 month before filming began in September of 1969, the Duke underwent cosmetic surgery to mask his age for the camera. Time and his own body were enemies he couldn't outdraw, but he kept doing what he loved anyway because that's who John Wayne was. Fact number 4. The production cost, $4.8 million. $4.8 million financed Chisum, which translates to roughly $38 to $40 million in today's money, and the gamble paid off when the film earned $6 million in domestic rentals to become the 19th highest-grossing American release of 1970. Those numbers might not scream blockbuster by modern standards, but for a Western in that era they represented solid success, especially when you consider that Wayne's other 1970 Western Rio Lobo actually lost money against its $6 million budget. Warner Bros. 7 Arts knew they'd backed a winner, and the box office receipts proved their confidence well placed. Fact number 5. Filming almost didn't happen in Durango. Durango, Mexico nearly lost the production entirely when the team started having second thoughts about returning there after the undefeated wrapped. The August 26, 1969 edition of Daily Variety reported that local vendors had allegedly gouged prices during that previous shoot, which put Durango on thin ice when location scouts started looking at alternatives. What changed everything was Durango's governor personally stepping in to promise better treatment, and that commitment convinced director Andrew McLaughlin and Wayne to give the city another chance. The decision turned into something bigger when executive producer Michael Wayne laid the cornerstone for a new $1.6 million filming complex financed by the state of Durango in September of 1969, a facility that would serve Hollywood productions for years afterward and cement the region's place in Western filmmaking history. Fact number 6. Ben Johnson was too old to play Pat Garrett. Wayne wanted his friend Ben Johnson for Pat Garrett, a choice that seemed natural until writer-producer Andrew Fainity pointed out an uncomfortable historical truth. Pat Garrett stood just 28 years old during the Lincoln County War, and Johnson had reached 51 by the time cameras rolled on Chisum, which created an age gap too wide to ignore even by Hollywood standards. The solution put Johnson in the role of Chisum's sidekick James Pepper instead, and what could have been a disappointment turned into scene-stealing gold as Johnson mumbled his way through the film with distinctive frontier gibberish that critics loved. When Chisum barks "what" at Pepper, Johnson simply replies nothing in a delivery so authentic that reviewers noted he really stole the spotlight from Wayne himself, proving that sometimes the role you don't get leads to something even better. Fact number 7. Bruce Cabot had to gain 25 pounds for his role. Wayne's vision for Sheriff Brady included his longtime friend Bruce Cabot, but Cabot had recently dropped 45 pounds to star in WSA and looked nothing like the character Wayne had in mind. The solution became one of the strangest casting requirements in Western film history, when Wayne asked Cabot to gain back 25 pounds specifically for Chisum, a request documented in a July 10, 1969 news brief in Daily Variety. Cabot bulked up as requested and took the role, marking one of 11 films he'd appear in with Wayne over their careers as both co-stars and off-screen drinking buddies who'd been friends for decades. If you're enjoying these behind-the-scenes stories that nobody talks about, make sure you subscribe to the channel because there are plenty more hidden facts coming, and you won't want to miss them. Fact number 8. An on-set romance led to marriage. Christopher George and Lynda Day arrived on the Chisum set as co-stars playing Dan Nodine and Sue McSween, but they left Durango as something more after falling in love during the 11-week shoot. Marriage followed, and Lynda Day became Lynda Day George, known to millions of television viewers in the years that followed. George had worked with Wayne before in Howard Hawks' El Dorado back in 1966, and the Duke considered him a great friend, which makes you wonder if Wayne saw the romance developing and gave it his quiet approval the way he did with most things on his sets. Fact number 9. Jeffrey Deuel made his film debut as Billy the Kid. An introducing credit appeared next to Jeffrey Deuel's name in the opening titles, marking his film debut at age 26 as one of the most famous outlaws in Western history. The younger brother of Peter Deuel from the television series Alias Smith and Jones, Jeffrey brought what the New York Times called a personable quality to the role, though some critics felt his Billy came across too sanitized and clean for a killer. December 22, 2024 brought the sad news of Deuel's death at age 81, from complications of COPD, a reminder that we're losing the people who made these classic films and took these stories into America's living rooms for the first time. Fact number 10. The producer hid himself in a pocket watch. Watch closely during the scene where Chisum shows his pocket watch, and you'll spot something almost nobody notices on first viewing. The photograph inside that watch isn't a period-appropriate family portrait or a sweetheart's face. It's actually producer and screenwriter Andrew J. Fanady himself staring back at the camera in the most creative Easter egg you'll find in a 1970 Western. Fanady embedded himself right into the story he'd written and produced, and the next time you watch Chisum you'll know exactly what to look for when that pocket watch appears on screen. Fact number 11. The same footage opens and closes the film. Those iconic shots of John Wayne silhouetted on a hillside surveying his cattle empire bookend the entire movie in what seems like perfect symmetry, but the secret reveals itself once you know what to look for. Identical footage creates both moments, with the closing zoom out simply reversed to create the opening zoom in through clever editing that saves money and creates visual poetry at the same time. The production team went so far as to plant a single tree at that specific location just to make the hillside shot work the way they envisioned it, proving that sometimes in Western filmmaking you literally have to plant your own scenery to get the image you want. Fact number 12. The ranch sets were reused for Big Jake. Batjack Productions constructed the Chisum Ranch house and surrounding buildings in Durango, and those sets didn't disappear after the wrap party ended and the crew went home. The following year, Wayne's next film, Big Jake, reused the same structures with only minor modifications, mainly white siding added to the exterior shots to differentiate the Chisum Ranch from what became the McCandles Ranch. Nothing went to waste in the independent production world, and those sets earned their construction costs across multiple films the same way studio backlots served picture after picture in the old days. Fact number 13. A tragic death occurred during production. Mexican set designer Ramon Rodriguez Granada never made it home from the Durango location, dying while being flown from the set back to Mexico City during the production in a tragedy that Variety reported on October 22, 1969. Movie making on location in remote areas carried real risks that people today might not fully appreciate, with cast and crew working far from proper medical facilities and modern emergency services, and sometimes the distance between the set and safety proved too great to overcome when something went wrong. Fact number 14. Chisum led to Wayne's Grammy-nominated album. The most unexpected legacy of Chisum started with actor John Mitchum, Robert Mitchum's brother, who played a character named Baker, introducing Wayne to his patriotic poetry between takes in Durango. Wayne's emotional response to the verses caught the attention of co-star Forrest Tucker, who witnessed the Duke getting moved to tears and suggested that Mitchum and Wayne collaborate to record the poetry for a wider audience. That suggestion, born on a dusty Mexican film set, led directly to Wayne's Grammy-nominated spoken word album, America Why I Love Her, released in 1973. With Wayne's preferred track being The People, and the whole project finding new life when it was re-released posthumously in 1979 after Wayne's death. September 11, 2001 brought another re-release as Americans sought comfort in Wayne's patriotic words, proving that a moment on the Chisum set created a cultural artifact that would touch generations long after the last frame of film ran through the projector. Fact number 15. The real John Chisum barely participated in the war. Hollywood took enormous liberties with history when it came to the central character, starting with the basic facts about who John Chisum actually was and what he actually did. Controlling grazing land stretching 150 miles along the Pecos River, with herds numbering 60,000 to 100,000 cattle, made Chisum wealthy and powerful. But the historical record shows he took almost no direct part in the fighting during the Lincoln County War. Financial backing and moral support flowed from Chisum to the Tunstall-McSween faction, while he himself stayed frequently away from Lincoln County during the worst of the conflict. And the most striking detail reveals that the real Chisum did not carry a gun, usually rode a mule instead of a horse, and was only indifferently good with a rope. Wayne's swashbuckling portrayal, complete with a climactic fistfight, bears almost no resemblance to the actual man, but screenwriter Finnetti acknowledged these changes freely and quoted Wayne as saying they weren't making a documentary, they were making a movie. Fact number 16. John Tunstall's casting created a dramatic age distortion. 59-year-old Patrick Knowles played John Tunstall as an elderly father figure mentor to Billy the Kid, creating one of the most dramatic age distortions in the entire film. The historical John Tunstall stood just 24 years old when he was killed, making him younger than Jeffrey Dewell, who played Billy, and transforming what was actually a relationship between near peers into something resembling a father-son dynamic. A young Englishman trying to make his fortune in the rough New Mexico territory became a wise old rancher dispensing advice in the Hollywood version. But the casting choice created better drama, even if it completely changed the actual historical relationship, and made the story work better for audiences expecting certain Western archetypes. Fact number 17. Merle Haggard sang the theme song. Turn Me Around flowed from the speakers in Merle Haggard's distinctive voice, though many viewers initially mistook the performance for Glen Campbell and never knew they were hearing one of country music's biggest stars. Photographic evidence exists showing Haggard recording the song for the film in 1970, with lyrics written by Norman Gimbel and music composed by Dominic Frontier, bringing authentic country credibility to the production. Getting major country music talent to lend their voice to Western filmmaking was classic 1970s strategy, and Haggard delivered even without receiving prominent credit that would have told audiences exactly who they were hearing. Fact number 18. William Conrad provided UN-credited narration. The opening credits featured William Conrad's unmistakable voice providing spoken-word narration over the Ballad of John Chisum, with Conrad intoning "Weary, saddle-worn, can you still keep going on?" in tones that television audiences would recognize years later from Cannon and Jake and the Fat Man. No screen credit acknowledged Conrad's contribution to the film, and the lyrics co-written by producer Finnetti and composer Frontier set the tone for everything that followed. Dominic Frontier created the full score for Chisum, and some fans consider it the best element of the entire movie, which makes it particularly frustrating that the score never received a commercial release on LP or CD, despite positive reception from audiences who wanted to own the music. Fact number 19. President Nixon used the film for political commentary. August 3, 1970 brought President Richard Nixon to a press conference in Denver, where he publicly discussed Chisum as an example of American values and law and order philosophy. Nixon's exact words praised the film directly when he said he'd seen the movie over the weekend, and noted that perhaps one of the reasons Westerns survive is that the good guys come out ahead while the bad guys lose, calling it a very good Western with John Wayne as a very fine actor supported by a fine cast. A sitting president using a current theatrical release for political commentary was rare then and remains rare now, but executive producer Michael Wayne had taken on the project specifically because he felt the story summed up his father's conservative political views, which means the film became part of America's cultural conversation about law and order at a pivotal moment in the nation's history. Fact number 20. Wayne was disappointed in his stunt double. The climactic fistfight between Wayne and Forrest Tucker required extensive stunt work, and the Duke felt very disappointed that his stunt double appeared so obvious in the final cut of the sequence. Viewers noted the stunt work looked particularly noticeable, and Wayne's dissatisfaction stood out because the talent behind the camera should have delivered better results. Legendary stunt coordinator Cliff Lyons had worked with Wayne since 1936, and Hal Needham, who later directed Smokey and the Bandit, joined a crew that included Joe and Tap Canut, sons of the legendary Yakima Canut himself. All that experience and skill assembled for one fight scene, and Wayne still felt the final result didn't meet his standards, in a rare admission that his own film had fallen short of perfection. Chisum arrived at a fascinating moment in American cinema, and in the arc of John Wayne's extraordinary career, his 200th film made while winning his only Oscar and battling serious health problems that would have stopped most men from continuing to work at all. The film transformed a non-combatant cattle baron who rode a mule into a gun-toting hero through enormous historical liberties. But those distortions reveal exactly what audiences wanted, and still want, from a John Wayne Western today. People wanted the myth playing out on screen, not a documentary reciting dry facts about the Lincoln County War. Romances bloomed on set while tragedies struck. Political statements echoed from the White House while musical legacies took root that would comfort Americans decades later. Sets built for Chisum served multiple films afterward. Careers launched from this production, and a Grammy-nominated album grew from an emotional moment between takes in Durango. A producer hid his face in a pocket watch. A co-star gained 25 pounds to get hired. Merle Haggard sang without credit, and President Nixon praised the film from a podium in Denver. Those of us who grew up with these films and remember seeing John Wayne larger than life on screens that seemed impossibly big carry Chisum in our memories as more than just another Western. The film wasn't Wayne's best work, but it marked a landmark moment, and knowing these hidden stories makes watching it richer every time you revisit Lincoln County and the Lincoln County War through Hollywood's eyes. If you enjoyed learning these facts that nobody talks about, do me a favor by hitting that like button, leaving a comment sharing your favorite John Wayne Western, and subscribing to the channel for more deep dives into classic films, because these stories deserve to be remembered, and your support helps keep them alive. Thanks for watching, and remember that they're not making them like they used to, but at least we can still appreciate what we had.